This is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners, but they'll tell you we're just fake news, deep state propaganda, funded by George Soros, the Clinton Foundation, BLM Marxists, and
Emotep.
Again? Hugh Jackman?
What? Huh?
Hugh Jackman supporting the show today.
What are you talking about? Emotep.
What are you talking about? I know who Emotep is. I was adding Hugh Jackman.
The way you said it was weird. Like Hugh thought Hugh Jackman played Emotep in The Mummy.
No, I don't think Hugh Jackman played Emotep. I know very well that he did not. It was the bald guy. I have no idea who the actor is, but it's definitely not. Yeah. I was adding Emotep or Hugh Jackman to Emotep, and Mikey decided to criticize me, so now I'm leaving. I'm butthurt. Goodbye.
That's what it sounded like, though.
About Hugh Jackson.
Why? As a perfect counter to Dutch, I will choke Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, bless you, TJ.
Yeah,
we saw that
I finally
sneeze.
watched that movie Free Guy. It was pretty good.
I haven't had a chance to watch that yet, but I'm going to check that one out.
It was
good.
Okay. It wasn't anything phenomenal, but it was okay.
Did anyone see Batman yet? The new one, besides Josh, who said he already saw it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So no spoilers for Mikey. No spoilers for Mikey. But give us a rate. Yeah, it was sucked when Batman died at the end. But let's give it a Haas's Humidor rating out of 5. Haas
3.5.
Oh, really? That's low. I'm gonna go with like a 4.
No. I mean about 3.5 is about 80% out of 5.
All right, I'm gonna go with a 4.2 out of 5. Josh.
I'm same thing. 3.5. I thought there wasn't enough action. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't enough fighting scenes. I thought there were some points where there was too much storytelling.
There was a lot of story.
It got slow a little bit.
It did drag a little bit. And he seemed very human, more human in this one than he has ever seemed.
I liked it. I liked it a lot, though. It was certain things that kind of.
The cinematography was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, it was good. Yeah, that was good.
So.
And I just have a pet peeve about certain things. And when I see people riding motorcycles without eye protection on, I know
I thought that too. I'm like, someone's gonna hit him in his eye.
Well, and then just the wind. How can you ride 60, 70 miles an hour, and just the wind itself of you trying to look where you're going, it doesn't work. As a motorcyclist, I'll tell you that right now.
I agree.
It always gets on my fucking nerves.
And it gets on my nerves almost as much when people say they drive a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You don't drive a motorcycle.
Yeah. You drive a motorcycle, you got a 3-wheeler, you got a trike or something.
Yeah, you ride a motorcycle. So today we're going to do a dig. We're going to do a dig on what is called the ratcheting effect, or political ratcheting theory. And we will dive, I think, pretty much right into that dig. So let me ask you this, because this will preface today's dig. When you bring these ideas to the table, especially like you mentioned, you brought those ideas to the table in 2018. It doesn't sound like they were very well received by what we would call the quote establishment. Would that be a fair characterization?
Oh, for sure. It wasn't at all. And it's and anybody that's running, I've always given advice, because there's some people that's contacted me because they found out my story that I ran. I mean, for me now to have candidates all over the country now supporting my OT40 overtime protection, you just got to run, even though you're going to take an L because it's an establishment candidate. The respect you start building your community. Like I do an annual Halloween chalk walk. I have people from both parties, organizations that donate, candy and food for the kids. My ability now to work with the Ukrainian community that I'm getting ready to do tomorrow, and the connections I've built there. I know all my city council people. I've been a campaign manager now. I've worked on a high profile campaign with Shannon Freshour against Jim Jordan. That opened all those doors. So where it might initially look like, as they would say, you're committing political suicide running against an establishment. No, I didn't. It totally, people respected you. My, connections with the mayor, anybody in the community tell you that I'm a hard worker, organizer. And, sometimes it's okay. This is a crazy thing. It's okay to have some competition, and it's okay for someone younger or older push you if you're in office. It's a healthy thing, but they don't like to be bucked, and it's happening on both sides of the aisle.
All right, so we'll get into today's dig. And again, this dig is going to be on what is basically called the ratcheting effect or ratcheting theory. And we're going to talk about whether or not we think this is a real thing. And we're going to talk about whether or not we think that this impacts politics today. So now, my 8th grade social studies teacher,
Mr. Humble,
taught me things that turns out, after doing my own research, wasn't exactly always the whole story. And this week, we will dive into the concept of what is called the Ratchet Effect. A Ratchet Effect is an instance of the restrained ability of human processes to be reversed once a specific thing has happened. It's analogous with the mechanical ratchet that holds the spring tight as a clock is wound up. So to give those on the audio a visual for this and the video, and for that matter, if you think about a ratchet turning in one direction, and it's got the little teeth on it that are curved on one end and flat on the other, so they're kind of like a quarter circle, so that it can move forward past that. I think they call it a plumb, but it can't go backwards, right? That's the way that those types of ratchets work. That's what this theory is named after. So hopefully that's an appropriate.
I thought of a better name for it. I thought of a better name. They should call it the subway turnstile.
The subway turnstile?
Because it rotates one way, but you ain't going back. It only goes
unless you're
way.
Jared. Unless you're that subway. Okay. I thought you meant the sandwich.
No. Wow.
All right. So the term, and by the way, Josh, if you want to stop me at any point, anytime something pops up that sounds where you want to interject, just yell out, pause.
Okay.
And I will pause. So the term ratchet effect, or ratchet theory, is used in a variety of different silos, including sociology, famine cycle, not to be confused with Mikey famine cycle.
I'm very famous.
Yes, they named starving after you, Mikey. I mean, what could be better? Game theory, production strategy, and anthropology, among others. For example, in economics, budget ratcheting occurs when positive variances in performance lead to greater absolute changes in the following cycle when compared to any negative variances in performance. Point is, this is not a strictly political idea, but this dig will focus on the ratcheting effect noted by the political left. Ratcheting, sometimes called the ratchet effect or ratchet theory in politics, is the belief that the Democratic Party is, like the Republican Party, a right-wing party, at least by global standards of what is liberal and what is conservative, and that the Republican Party or the Democratic Party in the United States actually dampens positive change. The YouTube channel Second Thought gives what I found to be the most robust description of this philosophy, and they argue it as follows. The philosophy of neoliberalism, a strict adherence to free international trade and highly privatized economies, means that at the end of the day, Democrats and Republicans disagree on relatively few things, with the exception of your, current hot button culture war topic, like defund the police or Black Lives Matter. They argue that the ultimate role played by Democrats in America is to actively enable the Republican agenda. This is called the ratchet effect because it works like a gear. As I mentioned before, when Republicans hold power, the gears of the ratchet engage and the machine moves to the right. As conservative policies are passed, judges are installed, and budgets are approved, all of which are conservative. When Democrats return to power, the ratchet is meant to move left, but the party acts as the pull, immobilizing the gears so that they can't move backwards. This means that the ratchet remains completely stuck in place until Republicans return to power again and things start moving back towards the right. In the real world, this ratchet effect can be seen when Democrats do three things, again, according to Second Thought. One, passively accept movement towards the right. Two, move themselves to the right. And three, block movement to the left from within the Democratic Party. The theory gives the example that as leftist ideas are gaining traction, especially socially, more people are losing faith in capitalism, for example, and support for moving from capitalism into socialism. We see these things on the rise today. So that is the evidence that I'm giving for leftist ideas getting more traction in society. Several policies Americans have typically considered left-wing, like universal health care, a living wage, tuition-free college, legalization of marijuana, like Josh talked about, his OT40, I'm sure will be one of these topics. All these things are more popular than ever, with most of them around 2/3 approval from Americans and the overwhelming majority of Democratic voters. So again, 2/3 of all Americans, overwhelming majority of Democratic voters support these things. You, me, Joe Schmo on the street, who considers himself a Democrat. And usually these are blue dogs as well as conservatives who support these. However, these policies almost never become law, as you can see by only one state as a state healthcare system. Nothing in California, which I heard was socialist recently and always. So why? Why is that? Why are none of these policies becoming law? Second Thought says it's because Democrats in power aren't responding to the growth and popularity of leftism. Rather, they are resisting it. Examples of this include recent elections where so-called Democratic elites clear the path for centrist candidates like Clinton, Biden, and in Ohio, most recently in their congressional race. The centrist candidates hand them endorsements and the keys to what they call their powerful fundraising apparatus. The mainstream media, which relies on, and I was talking about Nina Turner, by the way, for those who didn't know, the mainstream media, which relies on those same donors for advertising, also favors these so-called moderate Democrats, offering them limitless free publicity and often outright slandering the more left-leaning socialist or progressive candidates. Another example of this is India Walton. Once in power, Democrat attachment to centrism grows. As an example of this, Biden is abandoning the fight for a $15 minimum wage long before it starts. We see it in the recently passed infrastructure bill being cut into a shell of its original state. And we see it in what we don't see Democrats doing for workers attempting to unionize, despite Biden calling himself the, quote, most pro-union president you've ever seen. Democrats continue to raise military budgets and allow the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem to remain there, despite the loud theatrics that took place when Trump took that action. Thus, this proves, according to them, that the ratchet is frozen in place or moved too far little in comparison back to the left, so that progress will be made more to the right once the next GOP administration comes into power, with little or no resistance from the left, and most of the resistance being purely performative. The most telling example of the ratchet theory in recent history, or ratchet effect in recent history, is the U.S. corporate tax rate passed under Trump in 2017. Trump cut taxes for both the richest Americans and corporations with the promise of an eventual trickle-down. Trump cut the corporate tax rate from an already globally low 35% down to 20%, shifting the tax burden to average Americans and the middle class and away from his party's corporate donors. Biden's response to this was to try to bring it back up to 25 or 28%, but that is still far lower than the 35% that we started with. And by the way, years back, we were substantially higher than 35%. In effect, the ratchet would move back under Biden, but the overall progress will still be to the right. 35 to 20, back to 25, and then when another Republican comes in, whoever it is, Trump again or DeSantis, it'll go to they'll continue to move it back.
Hey, can I pause you for a second?
You may pause me whenever you like, sir.
You may pause when ready.
Yeah. So
pause when ready.
This is very interesting, and you know why this happens is because the Democrats have no teeth, and they have allowed Republicans to push the narrative, and this is the whole point of me running on that overtime protection, not taxing people's 401ks. What was a Republican going to do? They said that, whether you're Joe Biden, whether you're a bulldog Democrat, old guard Republican Democrat, I don't care. You're really going to tell the working person on my policy that you are not going to protect their overtime pay and go after Wall Street and make up for that tax loss in the corporate tax rate. You're really going to tell somebody that on my policy idea, I'm not going to tax your 401k after you take it out at 65. I'm not going to tax the veteran on the property tax, on a disabled veteran, in this country. I'm going to fix and push financial literacy to educate our children. You're really going to go against all that stuff. So this policy right here, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, it pushes this old guard mentality up against the wall. Because guess what? Now we're talking about Main Street and not Wall Street. And like I said earlier, these citizens didn't get asked if they wanted their products and goods raised. These citizens didn't get asked whether they wanted to allow people's healthcare system, whether it's insulin and drugs, to be raised. It is it's our time, as whether you're a Democrat or Republican candidates, the new people coming up, they're going to run for office, to start sticking up against this stuff. Because the only way it changes, if we get to the table and we end the old guard, and it's basically bought out and sold by Wall Street, and the citizens are finally starting to learn that. And there's candidates like me that are coming up that aren't going to play ball with Wall Street, aren't going to take this big super PAC money, and are going to actually fight for the citizens' paycheck. They have convinced you, the citizens, to tax your overtime pay. They have convinced you to completely take your bonus check. So until we start to fight for Main Street and not Wall Street, the citizens aren't. This is why the turnout's so low in some areas. That they're just like, no one's fighting for me, so give up. But until candidates like myself start fighting for that change, and that's why I'm running. But you are right. You are right. So technically, I like that. Like, it went from 35 to 20, and then if Biden was to take it back to 28, you know what I mean, and try to get it there, Republicans still got to win. Wall Street still got the win. They got it lowered. So basically, what I'm trying to do, if Biden really wanted, because he already came out 3 weeks ago, he says we're not going to tax anybody under $400,000. If he literally came out with my policy protecting people's overtime pay, and then protecting people's 401ks, and to fix that tax void, he's going to say, I'm going to raise the corporate tax rate. What Republicans going against that? Their whole thing's about tax break. So we have to start, like I said, a strong middle class pushes a stronger economy, and also helps the lower class get into a stronger bracket. But I'm telling you, do you think when this COVID hit, do you think they wanted these small businesses to succeed? Do you think they want that new pizza place opening up 3 more pizza places? You think they want that new wing place open up 2 more wings places? Heck no. Nope. This whole past 2 years and what's going on with this war, this is a reset for Wall Street to grip even more cash as they can, because they've got a limited amount of time. Because I warn everybody in Wall Street and every elected official right now, this war has exposed a lot of things, and the people in this world are realizing they're being raked over the coals. We are spending billions of dollars in the wrong areas. We've got people starving. Our water infrastructure is awful across the country and around the world. And it's going to come to a point where the people, remember in the Constitution, says we the people, not we the congressman, not we the president. And until we the people stand up, and it's happening, as we're seeing, things are going to eventually change.
Let me just ask you one real quick question. So when I would think that a Republican would argue with you is with this, why would the Republicans want a small business to fail? They would get more taxes from it. Why that we are the ones who are lowering the tax rate for that small business. while Democrats want to tax them through their nose. What would your answer be to that? And your quick elevator pitch to that?
Yeah, I mean, a small business should have an instant tax break. Like we were talking about this the other day, like at the city level. If you're bringing in a business that brings in jobs and that in your small business, of course we should give you a tax abatement and things like that. But if you're bringing in, like there has to be different levels, of that, that tax, just like the church. I don't want to tax the Ukrainian church, but I sure as hell want to tax a mega church that is doing nothing but exposing things. See, what's happened is we have combined a Wall Street policy to a small business. Those are two different areas. I own a small business. I started a food truck. I do bubble tea and soft pretzels.
You have a food truck too?
Yeah.
Tim Bristol, are you still in the chat? We have a fellow food trucker here.
And we need some pretzels up in this motherfucker.
We are being Mikey. Yeah. We are under attack by alphas and food truck owners now.
You know what, Dutch? I don't often agree with you, but God damn it, when you're right, you're right. They're all around us.
Yeah. Now the next guy we have on the show will be an alpha food truck owner.
We're gonna see the flat top in the background, and everything's like motifed black and gold. And then
right. Is your food truck black and gold, Josh?
No, it's actually
Tim's is. Tim's paint job is black and gold.
I believe it. Let me give you one little quick little pushback here, because the idea is not to read through the dig without discussing stuff. So I would think that the wife would argue this, because I'm married to a right winger, which is awesome.
A house divided.
She would say that she's on salary and she makes over 100K. She works for a big box company in middle executive management. She would say that she doesn't make any money for overtime. So, and she works 24/7, or at least when she's awake. And there is some truth to that. She takes calls, like the company she works for has a night shift. She's in human resources.
Yeah.
So if they call her at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., she needs to take that call. So there is, in this particular case, I see an argument that I'm looking at as a chink in the armor for this. What's your response to that?
I mean, does she get any bonuses or anything from her job?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so most salaries get bonus. I give you, for instance, like FedEx Freight, where I work for a little bit. A couple of my buddies, they're supervisors now, get those bonus checks, and regular employees do too. So it's protecting the bonus checks as well. And also in our discussion in the Zoom call, maybe we thought, like, because your salary, if say it was $100,000, maybe we don't, depending on how many hours, take based on a 40-hour work week, we reduce that tax. Like anybody makes a salary $250,000, I'm just giving an example, $250,000 or below, you're just placed at maybe just making 25% deduction on what that 100,000 was. So she'd be making 75,000 when they go do the taxes. But that has been all put out. But that was the whole point of doing the overtime protection up to $10,000 and those kind of things. So we want to be able to protect that. But for the most part, most of these jobs, like when we deal with the manufacturing and stuff and we get infrastructure, are going to be hourly. I mean, like the job I have now is salary, doing assistant escrow work. So I do understand that. But at the same time, that's why I was trying to broadening, we don't tax a 401k if you pull out at 65. There has to be some kind of reward for the work you've done. And I can stress this. I have been experimenting with this idea since 2018, and it's finally, we're going to push it out and run with it. And there isn't a candidate I've talked to that is saying it's not a good idea. And there's not a person I've brought up to that's thought of it as a bad idea. And I actually have some Republicans that are, I was on a Republican conservative radio show 3 weeks ago, and they're like, we love the idea. Like, I don't know how we would debate you or disagree with it. And this policy was designed specifically to fight against somebody from the right wing. The policy was designed to fight against somebody against a Democrat. It was designed to fight against the independent. It was designed to actually help the worker.
But the problem is that that Republican voters, they are generally people who would be benefited by this policy. So the radio hosts that you talk to may have been honest, but I see Republican voters on the grassroots level arguing against their own interests ad nauseum
all the time.
Yeah, because it's my message as a Democrat. They will muddy it as it's just a Democratic message and slander or put whatever they can in it.
Therefore, it must be socialism.
Yeah, so it must be socialism, and it's a crazy idea, and it's not going to work, and it's not going to help us, and that's what they do. They go against their own interests for some kind of social.
I was talking to a guy the other day who was agreeing. It was a Republican guy, a far right guy. He was agreeing with me on a criticism of, like, we were aligned on Ukraine, right? But I brought up something that he made a point, and I said, yeah, you know what, I agree with your point. And the only candidate that I've seen who supports that point was Andrew Yang, because he was talking kind of about UBI, right? And I think it was no, I take that back. He was arguing for not having money in politics, which is, like, I think I speak for my co-hosts. We're super against money in politics, right? And Andrew Yang had the idea. What was it called, Mikey? The
freedom dollars.
The freedom dollars. Thank you. I knew that your brain would work better than mine. And I was like, Andrew Yang had this idea. You know what he said? Fuck Andrew Yang. He's a communist. So, in other words, you can't agree with an idea that he has because he doesn't agree with you on UBI. I mean, it's just they fight against their own interests ad nauseum. It's fucking shocking. We'll come back to this in a second. Let's push forward a little bit, and we can pause again if you need me to. Okay. So again, I'll just kind of redo the last sentence there. So what we were just talking about was Biden's response to the Trump tax cut in 2017, where it went from 35 to 20, and then Biden now efforting to bring that back to 25 to 28. So still the ratchet moves to the right net, right? So the ratcheting effect theory says this proves Democrats come to the table to appease the masses, promising, like Bane, for the people, that they'll be different. Go ahead, say it, Haas.
I'm giving this to you, the people.
People of Gotham.
The theory says this proves that Democrats come to appease the masses, promising they'll be different from the previous administrations and returning the power to the people. And it's funny because I had Bane literally in my notes here to make a joke about, and Haas beat me to it because it was so overwhelmingly obvious. But usually we'll give you less than you had before. Now, this isn't to say that Democrats never pass what you would call progressive legislation, as they sometimes do, but it remains an exceptionally rare event. And this is my pet peeve. It's super rare and generally less than what they promised, as we're seeing now, or less than what could be achieved, as we're seeing now, because we have the House and we have the Senate de facto, Joe Manchin, and definitely not up to standards with what Mikey will tell you that his friends in Europe have achieved on from a global definition of what is liberal or progressive. Mikey, can you just take 30 seconds and express that?
How dope it is in Sweden
or Norway. Yeah, we don't want to focus too much
or
on
even England,
Thor, but
I'm misunderstanding the question part because you just told me something. Like, I have friends that live in Europe, and I'm like, yes.
Well, look, let me clarify it. So what our progressive candidates and some of the moderate candidates push as liberal in America is already fucking there in these other countries, and we never get it done.
It's always weird, like, because like the protected overtime is a perfect example because it's analogous to paternity and maternity leave. In Sweden, where a good buddy of mine lives, they get, I think he told me it was 200 days of maternity, 80% pay paternity leave from the government. And you can split it up between the parents. So I think he took like a month and he gave all the rest to his wife at the time. Like, what does that do for a parent-child bond that there are no interruptions? You can make sure your youngster gets off on the right foot. You don't have to be worrying about going to work and being all stressed out about money because you have to take off for the delivery. And there's all they don't have, like, when you change infrastructures in positive ways, a lot of the normal humdrum problems aren't really relevant anymore. Like in Star Trek, they have replicators so people don't fight over money anymore. Like when you change something that can be so damaging to a person, like taxes really bury people every year. Meanwhile, Bezos and Elon are just over there chilling like, all right, now which rocket should we make this year? It's like, I'm going to
fight Putin.
Yeah. Something is amiss here. Like we've
Flawless
made an error.
Victory.
We've made an error in our calculation somewhere, and we need to go back and double check our work. And I think protecting average people's shit should be the start of it.
It should be priority. And yeah. I can't stress enough. So for instance, like we had a school levy on the ballot, and we had a parks levy. The parks levy and the school levy. School levy was a must because just our schools need it here in our poor communities. And then the parks levy was amazing because it was going to revamp our parks program because we don't have a parks program right now, and it didn't pass. And this is exactly the stench of Wall Street has put. And you know why that meter doesn't move? It's because we all know this. Congress, you look at it this way. Every state capital in Washington, D.C. is a hen house, okay? And I'm running to fix the hen house, okay? But you can't change the hen house when it's full of foxes. And right now we have a bunch of foxes that are in charge. And until we can fix that and change that, we're in a tough position, and we have to get back to helping the citizen. And it's these other countries have things. And then also when we were talking OT40, we were saying, why don't we give people 3 days off a week? You know, so that a parent can spend 1 day at home together. You know, why is it just parents can't stay at home? So it gives you that 1 day a week where at least the father could be at home at least one school day. So when you have 3 days, you know, the mom could be at work on Monday, the father could be at home actually with the kid, or vice versa, however the work thing is. So if you just brought it down to 3 days off a week guaranteed, you could have a parent be able to stay, you know, start the morning with their kid to finish the day with their kids. So there's right. A lot that needs to be structured with the family, because that's what's been lost. It's been the family value, the parents being involved in the children's lives. And we all know this, and we hear this from our grandparents and our, you know, and my parents, how things were done. But things have gone crazy. And look, as this inflation goes crazy, guess what? More people are going to have to work. More parents have to send their kids to childcare. Less time, you know, where they're giving their kids to their moms or their aunts or cousins to watch their children, and they're away from their kids, and it's not healthy for our country at all.
Yeah, and just so you know, there's a couple of folks in the chat who are bringing up some conservative talking points. Well, I'm not going to get to those at this exact second, but and we don't want to feed. I don't think these are troll questions, but I'll probably have Josh comment on something in a minute. But let me finish the dig here real quick first. So again, I'll just kind of go back one paragraph. So this isn't to say that Democrats never pass progressive legislation, as they sometimes do, but it remains a rare event and generally is less than what they promised us, less than what could be achieved. And like Mikey eloquently mentioned, not meeting the global definition of what is liberal or progressive. In addition, proponents of ratchet theory accuse the left of implementing their own right-wing policies. which they call socialism, of course, such as the Clinton crime bill, allowing the right to move even further to the right, right? So when we passed the Clinton crime bill on the left, the right said, oh, we're here. We're going to go, I'm moving to my left, but you're right on the screen here, because the left has already given this ground. So of course they're going to take more ground, right? Because they're smart tacticians. And this basically shifts the Overton window by use of seemingly innocuous phrases such as Trump loved to say in Nixon, law and order.
Racist.
But the Democratic Party, absolutely. But the Democratic Party adopts support of these issues, saying, of course, we're for law and order, because they don't get the dog whistle. I'm adding this ad lib here. And we see this as police are activated towards BLM protesters. And what did they do on January 6th?
Oh, you
Nothing.
already know.
Yeah, that they were hours late calling anyone in.
They didn't have enough melon for have the police out there like that. You know that.
So Democrats do this because of the donors, the idea says, since the same donors fund both parties, which is absolutely true. They're able to keep third parties from gaining traction, another thing I think we need. And thus both Democrats and Republicans end up competing over the same centrist voter blocks. And that centrist voter blocks Overton window all too often becomes more accepting of right-leaning ideas as normal, and left-leaning ideas like defund the police, which is admittedly horribly titled, as being radical. Okay. Wrapping up here, the theory wraps up by claiming that Democrats find it easier to run as the savior from the last GOP administration, but in the same breath expresses the need to reach across the aisle. When have you ever hear a right-winger say, I'm going to reach across the aisle? You don't, especially recently. Because the right wing doesn't return the favor more than once or twice a decade. And when they do, it's all in the news. So now, this site that I'm citing, they do give some hope in some progressives who are beating corporate Democrats in down ballot elections. But note that these politicians are often drowned out by the Democratic establishment themselves as being too radical, leaving the once progressive lawmaker like Ilhan Omar with a choice of either maintaining electability and selling out their beliefs to remain in power, or being unable to pass policy, like we see with AOC, due to the lack of co-sponsors to their ideas. Nobody will co-sponsor a bill with AOC. And then AOC, of course, gets branded as unable to get anything done. The true silver lining to Ratchet theory is the rising popularity of more progressive ideas among Americans, and they pin their hopes, these folks, at second thought, on social movements eventually driving more change to actual change makers into power, driving more active change makers into power. Now, to be fair, there is criticism, because we're super fair here, of Ratchet theory on the right, which makes sense to, I'm going to briefly explore it. The pretty widely accepted idea that human societies have undergone social liberalization is often cited by conservatives as evidence that political ratcheting is a myth. They claim that we've moved so far away from theocratic fundamentalism that even sensible moves back towards it, even for the better, are opposed. Social liberalization, by the way, is when a once taboo or frowned upon practice becomes a social norm, often leading to the extinction or near extinction of a practice or activity as being perceived as negative. It also, like you could probably say, using gay as a proxy for dumb, right? As a slang word. It also refers to the relaxation of laws restricting these practices or activities. Examples include divorce, abortion, or marijuana use. Regarding civil rights, liberalization is eliminating laws prohibiting homosexuality, segregation, same-sex, interracial, or interfaith marriages, ending mandated religion, and the gradual adoption of cultural differences between groups, moving from an undesirable title to normalized. Thus, if they say on the right, if society has gradually moved so far left from like where the Puritans were, it cannot be moving right as proposed by the theory that by ratcheting theory. So,
pause. So that's
there you
the
go,
same,
Mikey. Yeah, no,
so
it's
that's the
over.
same-
You don't no need to pause me.
I think you're on a little bit of a delay. It's all good though. It's the same shit where I keep hearing like, well, you know, the founding fathers. I'm like, yeah, take that shit with a grain of salt though, because they were sitting there writing about fucking everybody's fucking freedoms, and then at the same time raping slaves. So let's pump the brakes. Everything. I mean, even your phone has to update every once in a while. I think a lot of shit, especially infrastructure wise, needs to be updated. A lot of our policies need to be updated. It makes no sense to me how the government will literally contract out loans and first-time business opportunities for hemp and weed growers, whilst we still have people in jail for weed crimes because it wasn't legal in their state yet.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Like, no, like we don't even like, it's like the dude who's got like 75 apps open on his phone. Like, dude, we have to just start closing some of these apps that we have left open that we haven't finished taking care of yet. Like, there's issues that currently pressing that we're just skipping over.
Yeah.
Hey, and you have to. So here's what's happening, and I had this discussion. In
Mikey, are you allergic to our guest?
I don't know. Do you have Josh? Do you have cats?
I do. I have a three-legged
that's
cat.
what it was.
Three-legged cat.
That's what it is. All right, we're getting him out of here. Goodbye, Josh.
That lost his leg in the war.
No.
You talking about he said he got a wounded.
Hey, and real quick, real super quick before Josh answers. So I want to challenge you something to the couple of conservatives we have. The couple of conservatives we have in the chat. I'm going to answer a couple of your questions, but please tell me the policy that Trump enacted that made our economy better. While we talk here for a second. So I'm sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to step on you. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is kind of funny. So you know how there's no way the Browns can have Baker Mayfield come back. Like, it's game over. Like, I don't know what they're playing.
That bullshit he said.
Yeah, I seen it. It was crap. Whatever. Goodbye. I'm not. But here.
Like,
So
I can't wait to see the Progressive commercial where Flo gets to talk about how easy it is to change your address with your homeowner's insurance because look, Baker Mayfield plays in LA now or whatever. But anyway.
So my cat is named after Baker Mayfield. So I was talking.
Oh my God. Get him off.
So I was telling my friends and
does he do the D-Generation X?
And my girlfriend, I was like, so do I basically trade Baker now since the Browns are trading him? My cat, like, do I put him up for adoption? Like, what do I do here?
Just change his name to Deshaun.
Deshaun. Oh,
yeah, or 21 Hands Massage Parlor, one of the two.
There, God, and you know what? That is a mess, and I think he still has to deal with the civil suit. So if the civil suit goes through, he'd be suspended 4 to 6 games.
We'll talk about him when we're done with that. We'll talk about Deshaun after we get done with this topic. I want to talk about him before we leave. But anyway, so do me a favor, Josh. Answer this question for me. I don't know if you can feel this or not, but if you can't, I can. We need Trump back in office if the country is going to get back to the economic state we desire. Trump, another person says Trump had lower gas prices and a stronger economy.
Oh yeah, because we all know, everybody knows that the president sets the gas price.
This is like, and like, honestly, sorry for you conservatives out there. It is so fucking asinine for us to read stupid shit like that. Bro, go read a fucking book. Stop fucking listening to fucking memes. Like, stop listening to memes and then like expecting fucking intellectuals to address this shit. Like, that is so lazy of you, bro.
But you have to be able to express what Biden would have to do with the gas prices, right? So
absolutely nothing.
I'm not going to say absolutely nothing, but it's so minuscule that it's irrelevant.
Right.
Right. Like you're talking about possibly he could pass something that would change it by 10 cents, somewhere in that ballpark, right? The pipeline that they canceled was not even scheduled to go into effect until Q3 2023. No, 2023. And that was pre-COVID.
Right.
So then it was pushed logically because of COVID, right? So the Keystone Pipeline has nothing to do with the gas prices.
Because we're talking about the XL part, which is the shortcut, which isn't functional.
And on top of that, right as soon as COVID hit, the gas companies hoarded their stockpiles.
Right.
They then sold them off in April and May of 2020 overseas. And by the way, most of the gas that we were going to get from the Keystone, and I realize some of this is natural and some's crude, so I'm kind of juxtaposing them.
That's Canadian gas that was going overseas anyway.
It wasn't staying in the United States.
No.
At least
but they don't know this because they don't fucking read, man.
80% of it was not scheduled to stay here.
After so many years, you get tired of trying to be calm and educate people with sensible things like this whole gas thing. And it's like, I'm tired of trying to be nice. It is hard to be nice when all you have to do is, does the president set the gas price? Answer. No. But, they still talk about that. And then how much money has the government pumped into the economy over the last 3 years for the economy to be better? And now that the government is taking that money out of the economy because you just can't keep printing money, what do you expect?
Yeah. And the argument that the Keystone Pipeline took away jobs, I counter that argument. That argument. First of all, it doesn't matter how many of the jobs that it took away. I counter that argument in principle. And we'll go to Josh here as soon as I get off my rant here.
High horse.
But it's my Teddy Roosevelt high horse. In that the amount of jobs in clean energy that the right wing is filibustering and blocking is, I believe at the last research that I looked at, I could be wrong here. I might be off by 1 or 2%. It's like 13 to 14 times higher, not percent, times 13 to 14 times more jobs.
Train. We don't want to learn how to do new things. We like our Flintstone cars.
When you watch Star Trek, Mikey brought up, and this might seem, I've said this before, but this might seem like a silly anecdote, but if you think about it, it's really not as silly as it sounds. When you watch Star Trek, right? Does Kirk say, Scotty, get me to warp 6? And Scotty answers, I'm giving her all she's got, Captain, but I need some more coal.
No,
he doesn't.
Lithium crystals.
Because coal is fucking antiquated. Like we need to get to newer, better technologies so that we can run our cars off of something other than dead dinosaurs.
Right. Hey, guess what? Do you still freaking use your Nokia or your StarTAC, or do you have a newer phone?
No, I keep my brick.
It's like you.
At times I wish I still had the Nokia and it was that Croix. I thought that Nokia phone.
Oh, you can do anything.
Do anything. You throw it out 20.
Whatever.
Spring break.
Out the window.
Listen,
to avoid
spring break.
Busted, and then go back and get it later.
And you know what? I love this other comment too, where they're like, "Do you get all your information from CNN?" And I'm not trying to be a dick here.
Oh my God!
But the last time I watched,
that 2 + 2 is 4. Are they wrong because it's fucking CNN?
No, right. And none of us who watches CNN, raise your hand. Nobody. I actually watch Fox, Newsmax, and OANN. You want to know why I watch them? Because it's fucking funny to me. I watch them all day long, and Victory Channel, which is the furthest right fucking news you can possibly get. I watch that because I like to see what the other side is saying. And I'm telling you right now that absolutely zero of that, my friend, is accurate. CNN is not on the Democrat side. If you that's what this whole dig is about with ratcheting. If you seriously think that CNN is on the side of actually getting green energy, you're a fucking lunatic.
Right.
Because they're not. They're corporate.
If you keep reporting truths that piss off the people that want to believe the falsehoods, of course they seem biased, because people refuse to say, well, shit, maybe I should go look. You know,
I'll give you a good example. Trump and the Republicans say they want to drain the swamp, which most of us agree on here. But here's what's crazy. They want to drain the swamp of the politician, but they don't want to drain the swamp that controls the media.
Right.
Does that make any sense? You know,
because it does. It makes perfect sense.
For you. How many presidents had 20-something people draining the swamp get indicted for shit?
But it you know what? It makes perfect sense though, because Trump is really, really stupid in a lot of areas, but he's also very savvy in a lot of areas. And Trump knows that the media is not on the side of Bernie Sanders.
No.
He knows that for a fact. The media fucking hates Bernie Sanders. And that's not to say Bernie Sanders is perfect. Bernie's got a lot of shit that we are critical of on this show. Right? But when it comes, he just happens to be the most loud voice in the room, so he gets the attention. Do you know that in the 2020 election, MSNBC gave 87% of its airtime to Trump?
Yep. And you think that was an accident? You think it was just because he was saying such crazy shit? They could have easily done what Republicans do and not report on his craziness.
87% of its total. How many Republican candidates were there that year? 17, 19?
Right.
And on the left, you had Hillary, Bernie, and like one other weirdo, right? That nobody knew. I don't even remember who it was. And I'm a political junkie.
Tim Kaine, I think.
No, Tim Kaine was on the right. No, Tim Kaine was a Republican.
Yeah.
He was the governor of Ohio. You should know that, Josh. It's your state. No, Tim Kaine. I'm sorry, that's not who we were talking about. John Kasich is who you meant.
Yeah, Tim Kaine did run.
Tim Kaine didn't run for president.
I thought he did.
I think he did.
No, he didn't. He didn't run for president. If he did, it was for like 3 seconds.
I'm saying
it wasn't very long.
On the left for
John Kasich. John Kasich is who I confused him with.
And John he's on CNN now, isn't he? Isn't he a commentator?
Yeah, John Kasich went to CNN and Tulsi Gabbard went to Fox. It was a trade. It was like the Deshaun Watson trade. Except I don't think anybody got any draft picks.
He was a VP pick.
Yeah. But like Tim
Kaine ran in 2016 for president. Vice president. Oh no, Tim
he
Kaine
didn't.
he didn't. Tim Kaine,
yeah.
why am I thinking he was the vice president?
He was the VP. Yeah.
And then he ran for Senate.
Yeah, he was not a presidential candidate, and he shouldn't be. Because when it comes to corporate Democrats, Tim Kaine is the guy. Like him and Manchin and Sinema and Dick Durbin are, and the worst of all of them is Dianne Feinstein from California. She is way worse than fucking Joe Manchin in a lot of ways. Even though she votes with Democrats, she is the most corporate Democrat there is.
Does she have anybody running against her?
Never has anyone running against her. In fact, next week we're going to have our friend Shahid back on the show, who's running against Pelosi because we don't like Pelosi. And Shahid got shit on all over by fucking Nancy Pelosi. And he'll tell you about it next week. So you can tune in and listen to that. You know, it's like but I'm still waiting for the Trump policy that helped, because you know who's responsible for the gas prices being this high? Haas, can you please answer that question? Who is responsible for the gas prices being what they are right now?
Ever heard of OPEC?
Never heard of it before. And it's not just OPEC. It's the fuel companies that are buying from them.
It's BP. It's Shell. It's
Chevron.
Exxon. Chevron, right. You know why? Because they can raise the prices and blame bullshit. Just like when health insurance companies raise premiums and shit and blame the ACA, when study after study showed that the by and large, the ACA, at least slowed the rate of premium increase. But these companies decided, you know what? We're going to raise rates. We're going to take people out of the goddamn network, blah, blah, blah. And we'll just blame the ACA. And guess who believed it? People that don't read.
Right. And look, I'm going to prove a point here. And I want to get Josh's opinion on this because I don't want to pretend I'm always right.
Real quick.
Yes.
In the chat and in the private chat, so you can put it in the show notes. Friend of the show, Ira Sweet, actually just made a video all about this. So you can go check out his video and listen to an actual economist tell you why the gas prices are the way they are. You don't have to listen to us. I found an expert to tell you.
Great. So to the folks who I don't think you're trolls. I think you're being genuine. Go check out Irish Swede. Mikey, our Trump, Mikey Famine, just posted it in the chat where you can find these videos. But Evan put in the chat. He said, "Am I saying that the Trump did a worse job with the economy than Biden?" What I am saying is two things. Number one, that neither of them are doing anything with the economy that is going to be marketable for decades to come. Trump made some moves that were effective in the short term. He also made some moves that were detrimental in the short term, like his tariffs, which added to inflation by 3%. Okay. Biden has not had any policies that anyone can point to that have directly impacted this inflation. Now, he could have done some that possibly could have mitigated 1% or 2%. I admit that. But there are zero policies that Biden has put into place that you can point to that have negatively impacted inflation. Why is that? Because of the exact point that we're talking about. He can't get anything passed because they're on the same team as the goddamn Republicans. They have the same fucking donors.
You got to stop talking about Evan because he's putting stuff in here that's so easily debunked. He keeps talking about the Keystone Pipeline.
Look,
come on, dude.
Maybe he doesn't pay as much of attention as we do. And it's hard because he's going to take everything that we say. And I'm sure you're a good person. I'm sure you kissed your kids. Right. But
Bless you.
Man, Josh, kill those fucking cats, dude.
Get a Claritin.
Is Josh frozen? I thought Josh was frozen for a second because he was sitting there. That motherfucker is still, brother.
No, I'm looking at Twitter.
But
come on with your borophyll so we can talk about something else besides these annoying.
But it's hard to
need to do this.
We will. It's hard to.
I'm gonna do this.
It's hard to have a conversation when people are parroting talking points that they hear from Breitbart or OANN or whatever the case may be, because we know that they do not focus on policy. They focus on cultural issues.
Cultural disruption. Cultural war. Yeah.
So, Josh, I want to give you a chance. I'm going to shut up because I've talked a lot. I'd like the three of you to close out on this ratcheting conversation and kind of give me your thoughts. Do you think that Biden is on these guys on the chats team? Do you think that this theory is right, wrong? How could society have moved overall socially left, but policies continue to move right? Or is it a debunked theory? Let's start with our guest, Josh. What is your thoughts?
I mean, in some aspects, it's true. I mean, but in politics, there's always a give and take, so you can look at it on both sides too. I mean, but I'll stick to my point. None of our policies for the working class and Main Street is going to go anywhere. Wall Street controls CNN. Wall Street controls Fox News. Wall Street controls every news network station. And I think what you're about to witness and see is they used to have control. And what has happened is, yes, are we getting some bad apples within the social media networks like Twitter and Facebook and that? For the most part, that does happen. But what has happened, these social media outlets don't have control. Like I remember before the first attacks were put on Ukraine, Wolf Blitzer's on there and he's trying to get in there, like he's amped up for CNN to talk about the war, that, Biden and America's going to do this and those kind of things. because CNN made their money in their career, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day, talking about war. So, I mean, I try to cut out all the noise. This campaign I'm running is to kind of bridge that gap. And for, like I said, for Biden to say, I'm just going to raise it to 25, 28, that's just, I don't know. We're not behind those scenes. We don't know what deals are being made with Wall Street. We know a lot of the candidates that are in office right now.
Absolutely.
And those deals are made. And, you know, Wall Street, too, understands they got to try to keep the people happy. Well, guess what? That's why we've got a bunch of social media networks being attacked a little bit, because they don't like the little bit of the free speech people have, and you know, but there's a certain extent to that where if you start talking crazy, you know, but people pick up on that, and the wrong message can be laid out. But if we can literally, I wish we could just wave a magic wand and find a bunch of Democrats, Republicans are going to say no corporate tax money, corporate PAC money, where 4 term limits, we're taking lifetime salaries, and we can form a coalition that way. We might not agree on 80% of the things legislative wise, but if we can agree on principles like that, we can do what Trump says. We can drain the swamp. We can do what they say that media is fake. But what's crazy is I'll listen to a Republican say that the media is corrupt and all this and that, but they'll sit there and watch Fox News and Newsmax and all these stations that are controlled by those people, and it's bizarre. That's why.
And the worst part is that MSNBC is just as complicit as fucking Fox is. Because MSNBC, when's the last time you heard MSNBC criticize a fucking mainstream Democrat? They never do. They're beloved corporate Democrats. They love them to death. But if you have one fucking progressive run, like Shahid and like you did in 2018, it probably wasn't CNN in your case because you were a state level candidate, but it was the local papers and media that I can almost assure you cast you in a negative light, because they get the same advertising donors as the candidates get.
Yeah, and I always when I talk about politics, I try to talk to a Republican or somebody that you know I can tell is not politically savvy. I tell them CNN and Fox News are made for one thing: to funnel money to the corporate candidates that are they're not only in DC but work with Wall Street. That's a fact. And here's the crazy thing: Nancy Pelosi for years tried to defend her ability to move money in the stock market and stuff, and now all of a sudden she's gonna because people are getting educated. For as many as there's bad things with social media, I'm telling you, this war is really showing the power of the people. And I really hope with this campaign, win or lose the primary, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to travel and work with candidates. And the story has to be, I know in this area, we've got Republicans that are moving away from their establishment in Columbus. We've got Democrats in Ohio moving away from the establishment in Columbus. And until those things happen, we're not going to get anywhere, and it's just going to stay the same thing. And we all know this. We're on this podcast talking. I mean, the one thing I think we can agree with the Republican to a certain extent is that there is a problem in DC. There is a problem in our capital cities, and if we can agree to understand that when you watch national TV, stop watching Tucker Carlson. This guy is literally in bed with every single person in Washington that controls the TV stations. He's there to stir up mud, and it's all he's there for. And guess what you're forgetting about? You're forgetting about the single mom that's struggling to pay for childcare. You're forgetting about the dad or mother that's lost their job. You're forgetting about food prices that are being skyrocketed right in front of you, because guess what? Kellogg's and everybody got their profits and paid off their CEOs and everybody else.
And who does Kellogg's fund? You think they're funding AOC?
Oh no.
No, they're the most fucking right-wing company in the fucking world.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They're
I mean, and it's ridiculous.
It would never happen, because I don't know if someone could really make a video showing exactly where money's been funneled to these established Democrats or Republicans, really like show each
You
company.
can't. That's the problem. You can't.
Yeah. And
Because
it's the super PACs scuttle it all.
And that's the reason why we keep screaming into the wind.